Welcome to another episode of the Safe Space Podcast, where we get comfortable having the uncomfortable conversations.
And talk a little mess. We are your hosts, Cee J.
And I'm Manda.
Welcome.
Welcome.
How was your week, friend?
It was good. It was a blur. I worked a lot of overtime.
Look at you.
And by a lot, I mean like 4 hours probably, but it felt like 40.
Oh, you're always exaggerating.
Well, that's what it feels like, Y'all know how it is. How about you?
It was good. It was long. Yeah, it was good. Overall, working, momming.
Listen, parents. Hey, look, we're on video this week.
We are.
Y'all. Parents, are we okay? I'm not sure exactly when this is going to air, but we are in the midst of the holidays. This elf on the shelf out here terrorizing people's houses. You guys are doing elf on the shelf this year?
We have Stella over at my house. I haven't done elf on the shelf in the past, so this is the first year. And I've been doing okay. Like, I've been sending you pictures of my setup every time I do them. I'm on point with my setup.
You new elf parents are so cute.
I feel like maybe day 22, 23, Stella may come down with a cold and I have to sit it out. But it's fun. The kids are into it. I think Aubrey, so she's the oldest, of course, I think she knows that this is not a thing. But Ryan is really into it. Mason could care less, but we're here.
Yeah, our elf, he's a veteran at this point. He didn't work here a couple years, so he didn't showed up a couple days late. We didn't even get started until is this week our first week even doing it,
ma'am.
Yeah, he moves around in the middle of the day. He may be in the same place in the morning, but by the time they come home from school, he does what he needs to. His name is Fred Santa. This year, he just signs his name Fred S.
Okay.
Listen.
Speaking of holidays and all of that, my 5-year-old wrote her Christmas list. I think, did I share this with you?
You did.
I did. Okay, so Ryan wrote her Christmas list. She had 3 things on that Christmas list. She wants a PS5, a Nintendo Switch, and a trip to Hawaii.
And what's wrong with that?
Oh, okay. I can do one of those things on the list. We've already gotten one of those things on the list, and it is not the trip to Hawaii.
I mean, really, what's wrong with that? The girl needs to go to Hawaii. She needs to experience the world. Y'all better go ahead and take her to Hawaii so somebody's little grubby son won't be trying to impress her with trips to Ocean City.
Okay, so we are not going to Hawaii. And I told her that she needed to go back to the drawing board.
How you gonna dash that baby's dreams like that?
All right, well, I will ship that list over to Auntie Manda and Uncle Galen, and they can purchase the trip to Hawaii.
That wasn't part of her wish. Okay. She don't want to go with us.
But realistically, though, I've been having such the hardest time doing Christmas shopping because they don't really have anything on their list. They don't want anything, and it's like, well, what do I get? Like Mason, of course, is easy because he's 1. It's fine.
Right.
But overall, it's like they don't need anything, nor do they really want anything.
Right.
So it's a little struggle. I feel like I'm behind. Usually, like I was on top of it with my decorations, putting my tree up and all of that good stuff.
We got a wreath out front. That's about it. I'm sorry. We do have lights around the garage and the front door. I'm getting the side eye from production over here.
I will applaud my husband. He put up the Christmas lights out front on Thanksgiving, and then we did the rest of the decorating directly after. So I'm actually on top of it. Usually I'm like the week of putting my tree up. But I feel like I'm a little behind with like the Christmas shopping. I don't know. Again, I don't know what to get. I don't want to waste a bunch of money. So there we are.
Yeah. We're doing a first time Christmas thing for us because much like you, we're in that point or in that stage where they're not really asking for toys anymore, but they're not quite old enough to be asking for clothes. Like they're still not into that yet.
Yeah.
So we are creating experiences now instead of just getting a bunch of gifts for no reason. So we are doing the epic Disney trip We're
Nice.
doing the parks, and then we're going to do the cruise. Because as you know, Dylan's birthday is also, his birthday is December 28th.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always been fun trying to figure out how to transition from Christmas to his birthday without
Mm-hmm.
cheating him.
Right. Right.
So we're doing
Well, that
Disney
will be
Christmas.
amazing. And we will.
Pray for me, y'all.
It'll be fine. You'll come
Okay.
back and tell us all of the details. It'll be great.
All right, bet.
It'll be great.
All right, so what are we talking about this week?
Y'all's children. No.
Y'all. I was going to say, well, I guess it is a great segue into this week's topic, talking
Yes.
about these kids out here.
Yes. So, do you have
okay.
something to start with?
I do. Actually, let me see. Technology be trying to play me sometimes. So I have this clip from the good old Insta. This gentleman posted a story that I got it from the Jasmine brand. I'm going to see if I can get this audio to play for you all.
Production. Oh, look at
I'm
you.
tired of hearing is that it's easier to raise little boys than it is to raise little girls. And as somebody with a son and a daughter, I'm telling y'all right now, that is bullshit. And y'all need to stop saying that. The reason why y'all be having people who don't even have kids, y'all be having them thinking that it's easier to raise a little boy because y'all don't raise little boys. Y'all just watch them. Y'all don't teach them shit except for how to not be a girl. Y'all don't have no rules or no expectations for them at all. The only rules and expectations y'all be having is for y'all little girls. From the moment they infants and toddlers, you teaching them how to be a grown-ass woman. You teaching them what they can and can't say, how they should sit, how they should dress, how they should act. You teaching them essential skills they gonna need to be a grown adult woman. But y'all don't do that with y'all boys. That's why you think it's so easy. And I will say, I actually don't have no kids. I don't have...
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what he was saying.
Okay. So, being a parent of two boys, now I have a boy, so I am not going to chime in though because he's only one, so we have not gotten there. I will chime in on the girl's perspective, but being a mom of two boys, do you agree, disagree? What do you think?
So it stuck out to me because I was like, ooh, like it kind of made me take my own temperature and how we raise our boys. Yes, they have certain responsibilities and things. And of course, when it comes to schoolwork and homework and all that stuff, you know, we're on top of it. They do have chores. But it really made me stop and think because, like, my oldest, he'll be 12 this year on his birthday. While he has started, like, cooking some things for himself, but it's more like an air fryer cooking and putting stuff in the microwave. Me at 12 though, like I was preparing full on dinners, meals. Like I think I learned to cook my first thing, which is probably, I think was like a fried egg at probably like 6 or 7 years old. So I'm like, oh my Lord, like, am I doing this wrong? Am I raising them with like gender roles? And because they don't really, and I don't pull them into the kitchen with me to make them learn. But I also don't remember, like, growing up, nobody ever made me go into the kitchen to learn how to cook or anything like that. Like, it was just something that I sat around with my mom and my grandmother, the aunties, and learned how to do certain things in the kitchen. So, making them learn how to cook was never really at the forefront of my mind, I guess.
Yeah.
Now Carter, that little thing, he's 9 or about to be 9. Well, he'll be 9 this year. He just thinks he's the king of wherever he goes. So whatever he wants, he gets Dylan to do it for him anyway. Like, he just likes to sit back and let people wait on him hand and foot. I don't know where he thinks or who he thinks he is, but that's how he lives life. But he will volunteer to help me with stuff like laundry. And
Oh, my little Mason putting laundry in
that was the
washing
cutest
machine the
little
other day.
thing. But I was like, oh my goodness, like, do I really need to stop and like make this a part of their upbringing? Because again, I don't want to feel like I'm forcing them to do it.
I don't know that it's a force, but at some point in time, they need to know how to cook.
Right.
Like, it's something that they need to know how to do. So I don't know
Right.
that it's a force.
Yeah, I guess I need to figure out how to make it fun, I guess. But and actually, just in talking about this, it reminded me of last Christmas because I was trying to scramble and trying to figure out things to get them and stuff like that. And Carter did show some slight interest in like cooking or baking and stuff like that. So I wanted to get him a easy bake oven because that's how I remember like starting to learn. Right. But it was like this whole thing, and it's like, well, he's a boy, so do you get an easy bake oven or don't you? And like, do they have a gender neutral easy bake oven? I did ultimately end up getting it out of desperation. But I think, and it wasn't like all pinks or anything like that. I think they did have a boyish or a gender neutral ish type of easy bake oven, but just in general, like, and I'm like, there's a lot of male chefs in the world, like you see a lot more male chefs than female, but there really isn't anything out there in the children's market or the toy or the play market that kind of incorporates little boys. Everything is pinks and purples and glitter and all of that stuff. But I don't know, what's your thoughts?
So from a girl mom perspective, I think I can agree with whomever that person was, just in that girls are very, like, make sure you look nice, make sure you sit with your legs crossed, don't do this, don't do that, don't wear this, don't put that makeup on too early, so there are a lot of things that they aren't allowed to do just based on society's perception. You wear lip gloss a little too early, you fast, or like different things like that. We do have like boundaries on certain things that they are not allowed to do. Like my 9-year-old's not wearing a crop top with her stomach showing, like her version. So the other day, she had this sweater. It was kind of like this, and it was a crop, but it met her jeans, and she's like, "Can I put like a t-shirt on under this?" Like, so she was uncomfortable with it. So obviously, I'm not gonna force her to do anything that she's not comfortable with, but for me, I just don't think a crop top for a 9-year-old is appropriate. So I'm not going to do that. But if she wanted to like get her nails painted or do little things like that or play in makeup just around the house, that's fine. But also my 9-year-old is not going out in a face full of makeup either.
Well, yeah, no, we don't want to do that.
But as far as like cooking and doing things like that, they have interest in it. And depending on what it is that I'm doing, they'll kind of help out. I think kids get to that kind of age where it's like they're a little lazy.
Yes.
It's like you get the really helpful stage and then the lazy phase, and then they kind of circle back around. So I think I have one that's kind of in the lazy phase right now, and then one that's still in that very helpful phase. But overall, I think regardless girl or boy, there are things in life that they just need to know.
Right.
Laundry, how to make simple things. Like Aubrey does air fry. Like she'll do air fry. She obviously will microwave things. I think she is nervous about the stove. So I'm not going to push that on her because I don't need my house catching on fire. So,
that part.
Again, she'll do air fry. She'll do microwave, things like that. And then things obviously that don't require cooking, she's able to do. Like she'll do on her own. She does her own breakfast and things like that. But I do think it's important to teach those things because at some point, you're not going to be 9 for the rest of your life.
Right.
At some point, you are going to live on your own, hopefully, and be required to feed yourself. Unless you plan on going to McDonald's every day.
Right.
So overall, I just think that there are things that you should teach your child to be self-sufficient as an adult. Or just simple, basic things that, I mean, I was going to say, we can be out of here at any minute. But something could happen to your parents, and there are certain things that at a certain age you should just know how to do.
Right.
Or I'm taking it a little off topic, but I remember being in Target. This was a few years ago, and Ryan was in the cart. I didn't have Mason yet, and Aubrey's walking along the side, and there were these 2 kids. They looked probably around Aubrey's age, so I'm gonna say at the time she was maybe 6 or 7. And they had gotten lost from whomever they were with in the store. And so they went up to somebody and was asking for help, somebody that worked at the store. And they were asking the child, like, well, what's your mother's name?
I knew you was going to say that.
And the little boy just kept saying mommy, mom.
Right.
And it's like, she's like, well, no, what's her name? So it had always been in me, like, my kids know my full name. They know Marion's full name. They know our phone numbers, address. They know all of those things. Overall, I just think there are things that get missed.
Yeah.
Like, Aubrey's never been in a situation where she's needed to call me, but small thing about my kid, if you are not at the school at 4:04 and she gets out at 4:05, she's calling. So this happened recently where she used a teacher's phone to call me, and it's like, Daddy's not here yet, and it's like 4:06, and I'm like, well, did you look for him? Like, what's going on? But I now know that if a situation arises, like, she knows it.
And
like,
that's
I've
great.
taught it to her, but like, she's never had to use it for anything.
Right.
So now, like, she applied those, although she didn't need to. Like, calm down, girl. Like, just look around.
I love her.
But I think that there are things just in how technology, like, you may not teach your kid their phone number because they have a phone. And
Right.
You plug it in.
I was going to say,
like,
and that is a thing. I don't know if we talked about it on here before, but like a couple years ago, we had a photo booth company, and we did this. I don't even know if it was like a Sweet 16 party or 13, something like that. A bunch of little kids. And the mom like went all out for this party, and they had it in like this lounge atmosphere, and they had the little lounge area set up, the photo booth and all of that stuff, DJ, all of that. We're looking around. The kids are all huddled in like groups near wherever there was a plug. And they were all on their phones at the same time. Like, nobody was interacting with anybody or anything. And then, like, with the photo booth, you take your photos, and then you have to put your phone number in so that you can receive your photos. The amount of kids that did not know their own phone numbers, like, had no clue what their phone numbers are, and everybody had to go, like, hey, call my phone real quick, or look up my number, and nobody knew their own phone numbers.
I should call my niece and be like, hey, do you, like, if you needed to call me, like, do you know my phone number by heart? And see what she says.
But in all honesty, and that was another thing I had to take my own temperature on, I do not know a whole lot of people's phone numbers. Like, I know mine. I know my husband's. I know my mother's home phone number, which is useless now.
I know all of the people that I would call in an emergency situation. So obviously I know my husband's, I know my mother's, I know my sister's. Like, those would be, like, if something were to happen,
I know
and
one
I
of my
lost
brothers.
phone, those would be one of the 3 people that I would call.
I know mine, my husband, again, my mother's home number, which is useless. And then I know one of my brother's phone numbers by heart. That is it. My sister who lives with me, I do not know. My children both have phones. I do not know their numbers. I think we have a landline in this house, and I do not know the number. I don't even think we've ever had a phone hooked up to it, but
I was gonna say, I think we have a landline as well, but we don't have.
I don't think we've ever had a phone hooked up to it, so I don't know what it is. But I'm like, oh my Lord, I don't know people's numbers anymore.
Right.
Or people don't memorize birthdays anymore. It's just, you just don't do it anymore.
Right. So I think get back to the basics of, like, how to, like, teach your child certain things, because again, your phone could be lost, it could be stolen, it could die. Like, there are things that you just need to know, not just with phone numbers and things like that, but just fundamental things of being an adult that you just need to know that some kids just don't know. But I'm going to flip over just a little bit, because he also had, like, a different conversation. I know I have been seeing, and I've been sending you a bunch of TikToks of, like, teachers coming forward talking about how they teach, I would say 5th grade, for example, and their 5th grader doesn't know or can't read past, like, a 3rd grade level. And nobody knows, or the teacher knows, but, like, nothing's happening. What do you feel like? Whose responsibility do you think, like, as a parent, obviously, like, you obviously have some responsibility because that's your child. How do you feel like, do you feel like teachers own some of that responsibility of, like, hey, I have these 2 kids in my class that don't know what they need to know.
Right.
And obviously, again, we're just having conversation. I don't know what the rules and regulations are of schools, of what teachers are required to do or what they're required to say. But what do you think?
So, as you know, behind the scenes, like, this has been a hot button topic between both of our households, I think. Now, I will share from my standpoint, and I think we could, because again, we've talked about it. We aren't the type of parents that, oh, well, just no news is good news, and as long as I'm not hearing anything, everything must be
Can I
great.
pause you for 2 seconds? So last night, so during the day, I don't know if your kid's school sent it out, but our principal sent out like, hey, your it's the interim for second semester, second quarter, whatever. Go on to check your kids' grades, like get with your teachers, all of that stuff. But I'm always on Schoology. I'm always messaging a teacher about something. So I go on to Schoology, and Ryan's a little bit different because she's in kindergarten. She has like some grades in there, but like not. So I don't generally pay too much attention to hers. Like I'll go in periodically, but I'm on Aubrey's all the time. So I go in one of her classes, the grade looks a little off based on like where it was before to now. And I'm like, that looks off. Let me message the teacher. So last night I messaged the teacher, and she messages me back, and she's like, hey, Miss James, I love that you're so on top of it. I'm putting in grades this weekend. Go back in on Monday, recheck it, and then let me know. But if that truly was her grade, because the grade is like, for her, it's like, that's off. Like she doesn't normally get that. If that was the grade and I didn't go and check, I didn't ask, and there was no other grades that need to be put in, she would be in a situation because I didn't know, I didn't ask.
Right.
The teacher didn't
hear
message
anything.
me.
Right.
So, but yes.
So kind of in the same vein, you know, you have two kids, they're raised in the same household, all the same way, you know, that whole thing, but they could be two totally different people. So our oldest, Dylan, he is just a natural brainiac. It just comes to him naturally, straight A's all the time. He gets his work turned in, all that stuff, no issue. Carter, he is smart, he's brainiac, but Carter is kind of like a free spirit where you have to say, hey, Carter, did you finish this work? You did? Okay, go hand it in.
Right.
So, and then he's in 4th grade this year. So this is his first year getting like actual letter grades and that whole thing in the school district that we're in.
Yes.
So, of course, I'm the type of parent, I'm going to be reaching out anyway. Just, hey, how you doing? Just checking in. How's my kid doing? Blah, blah, blah. Because haven't heard anything.
Right.
I know that my children have a reputation for being very well mannered, very well behaved boys in the school. So I don't get, behavior issue phone calls, any of that.
Right.
Much like you, I happened to go in, and this was right before the end of the first quarter. I go in, I look at Carter's grades, and my son has like zeros for everything. I'm like, what? Now, I do know that some teachers, because he does switch teachers halfway through the day. So he has a math and science teacher, and then he has a social studies and ELA teacher, which is English language arts.
Sure.
Yeah. So one of the teachers, as soon as you get it, she's
on top
logs
of
it
it,
in.
yeah.
The other teacher, she may or may not put the grades in. So I reach out to both, like, hey, just checking in, making sure everything is okay. One of the classes, she's like, well, no, he's perfectly fine. She was like, but yeah, no, he just doesn't turn anything in.
So this information, but you didn't share. Yeah.
Are we not going to say anything? Like, at what point are we going to talk about, hey, Mrs. Pierce, like,
your child,
he's been in, right, we've been in school for 2 months at this point, and I don't have not one assignment for your son.
Right.
Like, were you not going to say anything? Had I not reached out to her, then my child would have gotten a failing grade on his first report card. And it's like, at what point were you going to say something?
Right. So I think that it needs to be, I don't know if I would say 50-50 necessarily. I don't know that I have like a breakdown of what it should be, but I think as a teacher, you spend how many ever hours these kids are in school.
In essence, they spend more hours with your child than you do, especially during the week.
Right. So if you notice, we're just going to pick on Carter because you were talking about him. If you notice that he just does not have any grades in the system, as a teacher, I think it is your responsibility to be like, hey,
right,
just letting you know, Carter has not turned in a single assignment. Like, what can we do to make sure these are done?
Right.
And as a parent, you should also, as you were doing, be checking.
So,
But hold on, I think we need to go to a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back.
cool. All right, and we're back. So, what were we talking about before the break? Oh, the whole teacher and lack of communication thing. So like that turned into this whole thing when we ended up meeting with the principal and all this stuff, because just in general, that one teacher in particular, basically for all intents purposes, is piss poor at communication. And I don't think that teaching is her calling. She was a veterinarian before she was a teacher. Like, perhaps you need to go back to teaching the animals or teaching people to care for animals. Maybe she just reminds me of someone that maybe perhaps she should have been maybe a high school level teacher or a college professor. If teaching is your passion, that's fine, but maybe early childhood education is not it.
Yeah.
Like, just the things that she says in general. Like, she sends assignments home with no directions, and it's like, well, the kids are supposed to take notes. They're fourth graders.
Right.
But anyway, and I think that could probably be another whole topic, because it's like, at what point as the parent, we are advocating for our child, and this teaching environment is not for him. Her teaching style, if that's what it is, I can respect that, but it's not for my child. So, we've had the discussions, like, can we have him move to another class? And apparently that doesn't fit what they need to happen at the school, whatever their requirements are. So he's kind of stuck here, and it's an ongoing battle. So hopefully, things have gotten a little bit better this semester, but hopefully by the end of the year, it won't be a thing. I can look back at this and laugh, but I just think that we need to. The popular thing to say is, oh, parents need to be more aware of their children, or parents need to be more involved. Well, I think that some of the responsibility does also fall on the teacher.
Yeah, like, I think if you have an entire class of children that are, like, failing, for example, I think you have to, like, take a little look in the mirror, teacher,
right,
to figure out what that is. Something about the way that you're teaching is not marinating into these children.
Exactly.
Now, if it's a kid here or there because that kid is clowning off in class or what have you, that's a different scenario.
Right.
But if an entire group of kids, an entire class is failing, you need to,
that's a problem. So, and I'm so glad you said that, because one last thing, and let me preface this by saying, like, we are not the type of parents that, and I proactively asked, like, if my child, is it a behavior issue? No. Is it a learning issue? No. Like, do I need to do something? Am I missing something? I don't want to be so, my child is so perfect, or my head is up in the clouds that you can't tell me something is wrong with my child. Like, I've asked these things. I felt bad.
I actually want to touch on that too, what you just said.
Like, I felt bad because I even almost was like blaming him for what was happening. Like, because surely it can't be them. Like, no, these are educators. Like, no. And it really is not him. And it was funny that what you just said about if a whole class is failing. So just last week, they had award ceremonies, and there's 4 fourth grade classes. They did a perfect attendance. He got that. He actually got an award for being, I think it was like Respect and Responsibility Award. But then they also did like honor roll awards. The other 2 classes had racks of children getting honor roll. There's honor roll, which is A's and B's, and then there's the principal's list, which is straight A's. Those 2 classes that has that one particular teacher as their math and science, I believe there was 1 child out of 2 classes. There was 1 child that got the honor roll, which was A's and B's. There was no students that got the principal awards. So what does that tell you about this teacher? And in conversations with the principal, I know for a fact we're not the only parents that is having an issue. But what do we do here?
Right. Now, I wanted to touch on, you were just saying you don't want to be a parent who doesn't believe any like that your child can do any wrong or any of that stuff. Back to TikTok. I was watching. I think I may have sent it to you. It was a kindergarten class, and the teacher had brought in like glazed donuts for the entire class, just as like a treat.
Yes.
And the little boy, strolling in late, might I add, sits at his desk and has a whole hissy fit because he only likes chocolate donuts and does not like glaze. Had a whole fit about the donuts, and the mother apparently was there. I don't know what state this is in. I can't walk my kid to their class like in that nature, like be in the class.
Right.
The mother basically kind of like defended his behavior.
And I think she even took and gave him the donut.
She did after the teacher took it back. I never want to be that kind of parent.
Right.
And I think it hinders children for learning consequences and correcting behavior. Now, I think it's a difference between defending your child and asking appropriate questions and being like, oh no, my kid would never.
Right.
For example, if someone were to tell me that Aubrey like cursed at someone, I'm not gonna use that. No, that's because no. If she like punched somebody in the face, I'm gonna then ask lots of follow-up questions because we have taught her, and that's just not that's not in her nature to do. There's something that caused it, but I'm just not gonna be like, oh no, she would never ever do that. Not saying that she wouldn't, but generally speaking, there's something had to have happened to lead up to that.
Right.
So I think there's a fine line of like asking again questions to kind of figure out the situation and defending your child because you know who they are, and just blatantly like, no, my child would never.
Right.
And yeah,
like that, because then that made me think about another topic. I don't even know if we have time to cover this, but again, another incident in school. Just this past week, remember I called you and I was heated. Carter had volunteered to be a part of this Christmas concert. And the rules are very strict, very clear on it's a voluntary thing. Students have to be well behaved, ready to rehearse because it's just a short amount of time and they're giving up their recess to rehearse. So this was his first day of this rehearsal. Carter's came home that day. He was very upset. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? What happened? So he told me the story 3 times, the same exact story. He told his dad the same thing. So he says his job in class this week or this month or whatever is the line leader. So they told him all to line up. He was in the front of the line. The band instructor asked him to hold the door for the rest of the class, which he did. So after he was finished holding the door, he went back and he took his place in line. He said, Mommy, the next thing I know, he said, Mommy, Mr. Blank tapped me on my shoulder and told me to go to recess, and he wouldn't let me rehearse. And I don't know why. He said, I was afraid to ask. I don't know why. I just went ahead and rehearsed, but I don't know if that means that I can't be a part of the concert or not. So I emailed the band instructor just to find out what happened. I was, and all of this, and I'm thinking like, okay, well, maybe they're taking different groups, or maybe this wasn't your day, or nothing.
There has to be like a logical reason behind it.
Like it was never, oh, you did something wrong. I said, you sure? So I sent the email just asking what happened. And the response that I got back from the teacher was, what time are you available to talk tomorrow? So then I'm like, oh, like, okay, what happened? Like, and my email was very like, oh, I even offered suggestions like, oh, was it a different rehearsal day, or, trying to give different, and I was asking in a sense of just so I can explain to Carter what happened. So when I got that response from him, I went back to Carter again. I'm like, okay, are you sure? Like, did someone get upset in the line, or did someone think that you were butting, or, were you arguing with anybody? He said, no, none of that happened. Like, none of that happened. So I get a phone call first thing in the morning from the band instructor. This man has a personality of a can of paint. Like, he just very dry. And he's like, well, yes, Mrs. Pierce, the students are were made aware that this is a voluntary thing. It is not a requirement. I mean, most of them need recess more than they need extra band rehearsal anyway. As if like, I'm like,
You're
okay,
bothered to be
right?
doing
Like
this.
he's bothered to do it anyway. So I'm still listening. He's like, and I told them, I'm not gonna repeat myself, and I'm not gonna tolerate behavior issues. If I'm giving you an instruction, you have one time to follow it, and that's it, and that's all. So then we get quiet because again, I'm waiting
For you to tell me what
for
my
you to
kid
tell
did.
me what happened. What did he do? So after a moment of silence, I said, okay, well, okay, let me explain to you what Carter told me. So I told him the story. So Carter said, you asked him to hold the door. That's what he did. After he was finished, he went back and got in his place in line. The teacher then says, oh, well, maybe it may have been a thing of I thought that he was butting in line, and I just went ahead and sent him off to recess because I don't have time to address behavior issues.
Yeah, you do when you're not sure.
I said, so there was no argument, no anything. He did what you told him to do,
And he
and
still
you
got in trouble.
penalized him.
Right.
You didn't ask any questions. You just assumed that he did something wrong. And then how you're explaining it to me, very unapologetic. He's like, yeah, I mean, it could have just been a thing. It could have just been a thing of me assuming that he cut the line. We can try again next week.
Well, how old are you, Mr. Blank, that you don't remember telling somebody to go hold the door?
Hello, I said,
Where is your brain?
And I even asked him that too. And I'm like, so you asked him to hold the door. He said, yes. And then when he was finished, he went back and took his place in line.
Right.
So again, very unapologetic, and it's like, we're just supposed to say, okay. And it's so funny because the next day at school, Carter comes home and he's like, yeah, man. He was like, he said, I didn't say a word to Mr. Blank. I didn't say a word to him in music class today. He said, but I did get to help put away the instruments. He did ask me to be his class helper. Oh, did he? Did he apologize?
Right.
No. Did he say anything to you about what happened? No. So again, it's like you're just...
I think there's this idea that because you're a child, that you're not owed any type of explanation, or you're not owed any respect, or someone doesn't have to correct something that went wrong.
Right.
Like if you clearly, you're wrong, Mr. Blank.
Right.
So you should owe him
an
apology and to clarify what it is that happened.
Like, we want to teach our children to be good citizens and to be responsible adults and treat people with respect. But even though they're children, they deserve a certain amount of respect as well. And I think we talked about that before. Like, at what point or where do you draw the line of, because especially old school people, I don't owe a child an explanation. I don't owe them. They need to respect me. I don't owe them anything. But you also have to lead by example.
Right.
And you have to show them how to treat people.
I think there is, circling back to the beginning of this podcast, I think there is a such thing as you teach like all of these skills that they feel like your child should know or they should know when they get older. I think emotional intelligence is a skill that needs to be taught and kind of nurtured and developed. And I don't think that's happening. That's how you get all of these mad adults with a chip on their shoulder and don't want to explain to a student why they kicked them out of line for no reason.
Right. It's like, to me, I know, teachers, and I don't want this to be a bashing a teacher session, because we do. And even when I communicate with any of my children's teachers, I always start out with, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you for what you're doing for the children. I know that it's a hard job. I know, that you aren't valued. We know that you don't get paid what you should be getting paid.
Yes, and I agree with all of that. But regardless of any of that, like I feel the same. Like I'm always pleasant with all of my children. Even if there is an issue, I'm still very pleasant. Still communicating nicely, all of those things, and thanking them and doing all of that. But you still need to be held accountable.
You still need to be held accountable for
what you are not doing.
To me, being a teacher is no different than being a doctor. When you clock in, when you walk into that school building, when you are handling someone's child, you don't have the luxury of having an attitude. or having a bad day or being mad at little Joey for what little Rebecca did. You have to learn how to
Shut it off.
shut it off
Mm-hmm.
because you're forming someone else's life. You have someone else's life in your hands. You don't have that luxury. And if this is your, because I believe like preachers and a lot of things, teaching is a calling. You don't teach for the paycheck. You're
Right.
there because you want to make the difference. You're there because this is your passion. This is what you want to learn, love to do, and that whole thing. So yes, all of us have bad days. We're all human and all that stuff, but you don't have the luxury to mess up somebody else's kid because you're mad.
Right. No, I agree.
So teachers, if you're listening, let's think about that.
What she said.
So, was there anything else that we wanted to touch on?
No,
Again, this can turn into 1,000,001
Yeah.
topics.
I mean, I think we covered all of them that we talked
So,
about. Somebody left their outline at home, so.
oh my gosh. But no, I guess what I'm gonna do is go get my children, my boys, some aprons and get them in the kitchen with me.
Yes.
It's so funny, kind of touching back on what we talked about. I do remember Carter said to me, I think it was like right before Thanksgiving, and he's like, "Oh, mommy, I just love you." He was like, he said, "I feel so sorry for you." I said, "Oh, why?" He's like, "Because you do all this cooking and it's a lot of hard work." I said, "Well, you could always jump in and help me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can help me. I would appreciate that." He's like, "Yeah, no. Just know that I feel sorry for you, but I'm going to go play the game." So,
Oh, Carter.
oh, Carter. So there you have it. At least he is, I guess acknowledgement is the first step.
Yes.
So let's see what happens after that.
Nothing.
Probably nothing. He
Nothing.
will go do he'll put the laundry in the washing machine. Now, as far as starting it and all
Yeah.
of that stuff, we haven't gotten there yet, but
It's a slow roll.
right.
And he has Dylan to do it, so it's a slow roll.
This is true. Dylan will jump in and do it, and there you have it. Or perhaps they should see their dad doing more cooking and stuff. He just waved me off. Not to say that he does not help out around the house. However, when it is his night to do dinner, we usually end up ordering out. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But it gets done. We're looking
staring
at
at
you. All right, you guys.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Safe Space Podcast. We will see you guys back here each and every week.
That is it.
Bye.
Bye. Be good citizens. Bye.